Hey everyone, it's Blair here at Time Trades. Thanks for joining me this weekend. Today is Sunday, June 11th, and this is your weekly video. In the first part of today's video, I am going to go over some significant new features we released on Time Trades this week. And then in the second half, we'll update our forecasts. So what you're looking at right now is kind of the standard view of Time Trades probabilities. At the top, we've got probabilities of a pivot high. At the bottom, we've got pivot low, and the red is probability of a 5-day decline over 1.5 standard deviations, and the green is probabilities of a 5-day increase. So one of the challenges with this approach is there's an implied direction in all of the probabilities, and what that means is that sometimes these forecasts can and do invert. So an inversion means that a likely pivot low becomes a pivot high in reality. So what I wanted to do was address that challenge. And to do that, I introduced a set of non-directional probabilities. And these options are hiding here under this dropdown. And we now have the ability to choose between directional, non-directional, and both. So if we go to both, then we get 2 additional lanes on the bottom. And the purple is probability of a 5-day move in any direction. And the brown is the probability of a pivot, either pivot high or pivot low. So what this does is it eliminates those chances of an inversion, right? Now we can start to look for areas where there's a chance of a pivot or a chance of a move. And basically, I leave it up to the user to decide what the direction is, right? So the direction is no longer implied in the probabilities. The second change I made is you'll notice that we're using 1.5 standard deviations now as the threshold for a big move. And that is down from 2 standard deviations. 2 standard deviations was just a little bit too rare. We weren't getting enough signals using that. So what I found through experimentation is that 1.5 standard deviations is optimal. So those 2 changes have been put in place. A third change that is under the hood, that's something you won't notice unless I tell you, is the underlying machine learning algorithm that I use to calculate the probabilities has been changed as well. We're no longer using a neural network. We're using a tree-based algorithm based on XGBoost, if you're familiar with that. So this tree-based algorithm has a couple of advantages. Number one, it's a lot faster to train up the models. And secondly, every single model now has influencers. So I'm going to spend some time on the influencers page now. And we can take a look at what we get right now with every model in the system. And to me, this is really important, and this is what makes Time Trades probably one of the most unique research platforms out there for market timing. So you'll notice that we are only showing influencers over the non-directional pivots and moves. We've eliminated the influencers for the directional ones because those directional forecasts have the possibility of inverting. So we're focusing in on the non-directional ones. And when we click on pivots here, we can see the ranking of the top 100 most influential features out of the total of 2,128 that are in the Time Trades model. And what I find super interesting about this is for SPX, and these are custom for every single symbol, right? So every symbol will get a different list, is that the moon delta is distance. So this is distance to and from Earth. It's the #1 influencer over both pivots and moves. So A lot of people focus in on full moons, new moons, illumination, that kind of thing. And I've tested that out, and it's not more important than delta or distance. So moon distance, hugely important. Del dot is the rate of change of distance. So it's basically the first derivative of distance. You can see that's number 2. Declination prime is the first derivative of declination. Okay, so that's how the declaration is trending, whether it's moving up or down. And delta to Mercury delta again is important. And we see the actual declination here, not the rate of change of declination. That's number 5. So many moon related items here in the top 5. That's huge. Like, I think 4 out of the top 5 are moon related. Then we get into Ceres. That's interesting. Ceres rate of change of distance. Mercury declination prime, rate of change of Mercury's declination. The sum of all interplanet distances. So this is super interesting here. We also have the juice indicator, and that is available to visualize on the time trades chart. That's a proprietary indicator that basically is based on alignments of planets. So if we scroll down a little bit more here, we can see other things like Mercury-Venus geoseparation. So that's the separation between Mercury and Venus. That's also shown in the short-term waves on the chart. Okay, let's scroll down a little bit more and see what we can see here. Helio R dot. So helio R, or radius, is the distance from the sun to the planet, in this case Mars. R dot is the rate of change of that. Okay, so that's interesting as well. So that's basically the equivalent of del dot, but for the sun and not Earth. Okay, let's scroll down a little more. Number 40 here is super interesting. Mercury helio quintile since pivot. When you look at these, what this means is that Mercury heliocentric has moved 72 degrees since a pivot high or a pivot low, and these pivots are automatically identified. So what I'm doing under the hood of time trades is I'm counting 72 degrees of Mercury helio movement, and that is very influential over both pivots and moves. When the sun changes a decan or goes into a new segment of 10 degrees geocentric, that is a significant change. Scroll down some more. Now we get into terms, and my friend Marsilio is a huge proponent of terms. So it's great to see terms here, in the top 100, right? This is out of over 2,000, remember. So anything in the top 100 is pretty significant. The number here is basically the percentile. So this means that this is among the 3.2 percentile most important influencers. So that's explained on the header over here. Okay, so we've got some terms, which is great. Medium pivots, those show up as well in the trading view indicator. And yeah, then we get into a bunch of same plane items, which is interesting. That's when a pair of planets are on the same plane as each other. Basically, they're both north of the ecliptic or south of the ecliptic. Okay, so I wanted to give you a quick tour of that. That's available for both pivots and moves. Okay, so the top 100 are here, and all of this is available to all Time Trade subscribers. Now, the second part of the influencers page is over here on lunar transits. Okay, and again, we've simplified this screen. Instead of showing the 4 directional forecasts, we're showing the influencers over just pivots and moves. So again, what we're showing here is a number, and that number is the percentile ranking. Okay, so 14.4% means that the moon trine 120 degrees with the north node is in in the top 14.4 percentile of all influencers over pivots. Okay, so the way this is to be used is you should just scan this for small numbers. You want to look for the smallest possible number. It's like golf in that way. The smallest number I can see here is the quintile 216 of Mercury. So when the moon is 216 degrees from Mercury, that is the highest influence over a pivot. Okay. I don't see any lower numbers here, but using this, you can identify what are the most influential lunar aspects over either a pivot. And we can see here the moon entering Libra is a very significant influencer, and moves. We can also take a look at what influences big moves here. We see that moon 72 degrees quintile from the sun is probably the most significant one. So one of the things that I'm going to do is update the TradingView script so that these labels here are displayed in the TradingView script, because of course the moon moves very quickly. It's more of an intraday type indicator, and we will want to match up this information that's gained from the machine learning and match that up with exactly when this is happening next on your intraday chart. So that is on my to-do list here. Okay. So I wanted to give you that update of how the chart and influencers have been updated, simplified, and made more effective and usable for you. Okay, so let's go into the second part of the forecast of the video today, which is a forecast review. And we're going to take advantage of some of these new features that I've created here. So we can see here, let's just go into a non-directional option. So this is only showing moves here in purple and pivots in brown. So we can see here that we've got this range of dates for SPX between June 27th and July 5th as a pivot. Now, this is not saying it's a low or a high. If we go back to our to both, we can see that there's an increasing probability of a move down in the directional pivot. Okay, just wanted to check that net probabilities were off there, and they are. So we've got an increasing probability of moves down. That's reflected also in the increasing probability of non-directional moves. And we also have a nice cluster of probabilities here of a pivot, and this is right in our existing range between June 27th and July 6th. So if we flip over to TradingView, this is where we left off last week. We've got our green target box here. We've got June 26th to July 6th. So that's roughly in line with our target dates. And price-wise, you know that price is kind of a secondary indicator here, but I've got this centered around the gray 50% and the orange magic level. And we also have a GAN-FAN down here as well. And also timing-wise, it's important to note that we've got a GAN wave, that's the blue here. So we can see on the GAN wave cycle, remember the typical GAN wave cycle is blue is a low, yellow is a high. So we went for about a month with 3 straight GAN waves, almost all at the same price, starting on March 29th, April 12th, and then April 25th. And then when that started to move, it moved up, and then it's accelerated upward. And now here we are, we had a GAN wave blue on June 5th. And that so far seems to have marked a high. I'm discounting this higher high over here because there was a contract roll on Thursday. So If you look at just the September contract and not the continuous contract, this is not a higher high. So I'm counting this as the high over here, which is real interesting because it occurs at a magic level, a Gann wave blue, and a Gann fan. So this is significant to me. And then, of course, this week, everyone knows we've got a ton of news coming out. I think the most important item, though, for me is the massive issuance of Treasury debt that's going to be happening. There's going to be a big reload of the Treasury General account. That is going to be pulling liquidity from the system. And in addition, we've got CPI, PPI, and FOMC coming up, which are all have the potential to be catalysts for volatility. So one of the things I'm looking at here is a lower low than what we got last week. And I'm looking for a continuation down into this green box here between June 26 and July 6. And this would align with the machine learning probabilities in time trades. This would also align with the mass pressure index in time trades. So if we turn that on, the mass pressure index is something that's derived from price 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and 60 years ago. So it's only available for a handful of symbols that have that kind of price history. SPX is one of them. DJI is the other. And we see a couple of red candles forming here on the weekly. Each of these mass pressure index candles are 1 week. So we see that going down. And what's really fascinating to me is that this is completely in line with the pivot low that we see generated by the machine learning. So we've got a very strong confluence here between news, between overbought sentiment, the put call ratio, and the machine learning forecast, and the mass pressure index all are aligning on the same message, which is lower into the end of the month and early July. So given that, we are not going to be updating this forecast here. We're going to stick with this arrow and green box where it is. We've got confidence in this forecast, so we're just going to watch and let this play out. With that, we're going to do a quick tour of some other symbols in time trade. So let's go and take a look at Tesla. I want to take a look at Tesla. I want to show you guys something here in Tesla, which is super interesting. So in Tesla, if we go and turn on Gann fans, and I really like Gann fans because they're like, I'm going to turn off net probabilities here first, and I'm going to turn on Gann fans. All right. So Gann fans to me is the place to start when you're learning time trades. And the reason is its simplicity, okay? So if we just, let's just go into non-directional here. We'll create a little bit more space here. Now, the way you use Gann fans is, the idea is that you want to use them as a guide to square the chart. I know there's a lot of lines on the chart, but that's actually the benefit of doing this way. This way is that you can visually test the alignment of multiple trend lines all at once. So what I want to do is I'm focusing in on this trend line that starts up here, August 16th. And what I want to do is I want to just line it up so that these lines hit significant spots on price. So I'm going to do that by dragging the price axis here. And one of the things that we can see here is this middle line is starting to get very close to this gap here. And let's just line it up so that we do have alignment with that gap. When we do, it also lines up with this top, and the bottom of this Gann fan over here also lines up with this move down, and it almost touches there, okay? So what about this top line here? Let's go and take a look. How does that line up? Well, that lines up really good with this high over here on March 31st. Okay, so what is this telling us now? Well, now that we've got this aspect ratio set, we can see that the recent pump from Tesla is right up at another GAN fan over here at 252. We can also see that when we started to pull away from this nest of resistance, that's when it really got going. Okay, so this was this is one of the things I like, is just the simplicity of GAN fans. We can tweak it a little bit more. Let's say maybe you want the shorter term fan to end up here. We can do that, and it'll update all of the lines at once, not just one of them. Okay, so there we go. There's that. And that ends up with some resistance up here at maybe 257, 260. But the point is that Tesla is now closer to resistance than it is support. And we can see that when the message is still the same, that when it started to break away from, this cluster of 3 or 4 GAN fans here, that was a significant show of energy. Okay. So GAN fans, great place to start with Tesla. Let's take a look at Bitcoin here and see what this is telling us. Okay, so here we are on Bitcoin. We've got the non-directional forecast up, and it's telling us there's a pivot low on June 25th. And I like this a lot better because it is aligning with stocks. It always feels a little weird when Bitcoin has a bullish forecast and stocks have a bearish forecast, because they do tend to move in general in the same direction. So we're starting to see a bit of weakness in Bitcoin. I'm not sure it's something to get concerned about at the moment. Right now, it's at a pretty routine 50% retrace of this move up from March 10th to April 14th. That being said, it's not looking strong, that's for sure. Let's reassess after this pivot on June 25th and see if there's a better opportunity then. Okay, we'll take a quick look at gold. All right, so let's just make sure, let's turn off net probabilities here on gold, and we'll add the both directional and non-directional to see what it has to say. Gold, I'm not seeing a huge opportunity at the moment here. Maybe we could turn on GAN fans and see what that's telling us. Let's just square the chart here. I like to find a long-term, when I'm doing this squaring for the first time, I like to find kind of a long-term, this is a good long-term peak over here. So I'm going to square it up with this guy. So let's drag that down and see what this looks like. Okay, so now the fans extending out from this peak are set up like this, and we can scroll over and take a look. And again, we can see how this cluster of fans, once price escaped from that, it started an uptrend. Very good information. So we can zoom in a little bit here, see if we can get some more context around gold's likely next move. It looks like it's almost like we're operating in reverse at the moment, because we've got like this cluster of fans here going up, but it's slowly grinding below it. I like to also take a look at when the fans cross, so be aware of those. We've got a couple of crosses coming up late June. So honestly, I'm not seeing a heck of a lot here when it comes to gold at the moment. That's okay. We don't have to force a trade. I would just kind of put things on hold here and wait to see if a good trading opportunity approaches with these upcoming GAN fan crosses. So that's gold. We can take a quick look at the US dollar. US dollar is looking generally trending down here. I'm going to turn off net probabilities. And now we can see, well, we've got this pivot here, July 5th. And that's interesting as well, because that's in line with our pivot zone for stocks. So looks like the trend or the probabilities for the dollar continue downwards until we get into the zone of pivots starting around July 5th. Okay. And now we can take a look at NSCI. Let's see what's happening with the Nifty. The Nifty is a great index in terms of respecting the GAN-FANs. Again, it's just kind of hanging out within this channel, this GAN-FAN channel that it's been in since early May. Looks like something interesting may happen as as we move forward in time, and it keeps chugging up here, and it might get squeezed up against this magic level and this prior significant high over here that it made December 1st. So it looks like there may be a little bit of a reaction here. The directional forecast is saying it's going to be down. So we will keep our eyes out on that. But for now, the Nifty trend is up. It's tracking this GAN-FAN. We do have a couple of GAN-FAN crosses coming up this week. We've got one on June 15th, it looks like, or actually one on June 14th, and then another on June 15th. So here's one cross, here's the other cross. Actually, yeah, there's 3 crosses coming up. So be aware of those. It looks like we might get some volatility when these GAN-FAN lines cross. Often you can see a pivot around then. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for using time trades. Good luck this week. Trade safe, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye now.